Hello students, I hope you all are absolutely safe and fine out there. I would like to welcome all of you all back for the video solution of English 2, that's your literature paper, Cyclic Test 3. The paper was conducted on the 17th of September and the marks allotted were 50. The concepts covered under this test were Merchant of Venice, Act 3, Scene 4, Scene 5, The Little Match Girl, The Patriot, and 9 gold medals. So come on, now let us quickly proceed further and understand exactly how you can score your maximum marks by following some basic guidelines. Okay, looking at question number 1, where Lorenzo says, how true? Goes on to bounty can enforce you, where Portia replies, I never did repent. Which goes on to of manners and of spirit. You guessed it right, guys. This extract has been taken from Act 3, Scene 4, where we see Lorenzo praising Portia for her sacrifice that she has shown towards Bassanio and Antonio. This is exactly how you are going to begin your answer. This extract has been taken from Act 3, Scene 4, where we see Lorenzo praising Portia for her sacrifice towards Bassanio and Antonio. Question number 1, who is referred to as a true gentleman? Why is he in need of relief? Here we have just given you the keywords, but you have to write the answer in full sentences. So the person referred to as a true gentleman here is none other than Antonio. The reason why he is in need of relief is because he has taken a debt for Bassanio, which now he is unable to pay back. And for that purpose, his moneylender, the Jewish moneylender Shylock, is now behind his life, threatening him. And for that purpose, Portia has sent Bassanio in order to relieve Antonio. Right? These were just basic guidelines. Moving further, you might be asked in the examination meaning of certain phrases. So you need to know your phrases really well, guys. An equal yoke of love. So this was said by Portia. Of lineaments, of manners, and of spirit. That simply means that two people, because they are such close, they share such a close bond, it's because they have the equal amount of love for each other. They are same in behavior, they are same in characteristics, they are same in temperament, and that is why they get along together. So an equal yoke of love, of lineaments, of manners, and of spirit simply means where two people are bonds, they are bound to each other out of love, where the behavior, the characteristics of those particular people are similar, and they like the company of each other. You're referring to Bassanio and Antonio and their inseparable bond. Your bond means the friendship bond. Which aspect of Portia's character is shown in the scene? So yes, because this question is of 4 marks, you're going to elaborate on the particular answer. The first characteristic we saw was of fair and just, where she could really understand that Antonio was going through a tough time and now she needed to send Bassanio to Venice. She could not keep Bassanio with herself. She knew that Antonio needs Bassanio. So her second quality we can talk about is a compassion. She was a compassionate person, a person who knew what Bassanio's emotional state was at that point of time, and understanding that, she took the toughest decision of letting Bassanio go away from her. She is appreciative of people's good behavior. She appreciates the way Antonio has stood for Bassanio when Bassanio needed a friend the most. She is not a jealous lady who is actually jealous of Bassanio's very good friend. And she's not even, skeptical on the fact that she might have to share her husband with Antonio. She's okay at this point of time of letting Bassanio go to Antonio. We can talk about a characteristic of being empathetic. She could understand the kind of support that Bassanio needed from Portia. Generous, that she offered 20 times the amount of the bond to the moneylender. She gave Bassanio 20 times the amount, and she said, if not 3,000 ducats, give him 20 times more and just settle the bond. She was humble, that she did not talk big about a gesture. She was modest about whatever she had done. She was not boasting about it. She was not proud about it. Whereas she simply said that I did something for someone who stood with my husband when he needed a support. She does not feel arrogant about her sacrifice. She is happy that she could be of Antonio's help. She was a quick to think. She had this characteristic of thinking really quick, and that is why she sends her servant Balthazar to Padua. Okay, great at planning, where very swiftly she takes Larissa into confidence and actually leaves from Belmont in order to go to Venice. So you might not write down all the qualities. Any 5 are more than enough. Begin your answer with an introduction and then write down any 4 or 5 points. Absolutely okay. Don't go on elaborating and writing all the pointers. You can pick up any 4 pointers or 5 pointers, and that's more than enough. Okay, now moving on to question number 2. Jessica says past all expressing come to heaven. So yes, we've guessed this right, guys. This extract has been taken from Act 3, Scene 5, where we see first of all Lancelot and Jessica entering the scene. Later on we see Lorenzo entering the scene. Jessica actually says these statements when Lorenzo is asking Jessica that what are her emotions or what are her feelings towards Portia. What is that exactly she's thinking about Portia? So what is pastoral expressing? Why does Jessica suggest that Bassanio should lead an upright life? The only reason she says this is because, first of all, she doesn't have enough words to praise Portia. According to her, Portia has been one of a kind, and there is no other lady like Portia ever created. And she further says that because Bassanio is blessed with a beautiful and a very kind lady Portia, he better lead a very honest life. Otherwise, even after his death, he will never ever go to heaven, because here, in spite of being alive, he's experiencing a heaven by getting Portia in his life. And if now, being on earth, he cannot value heaven, then of course, after dying also, he does not deserve to go to heaven. What does Jessica say in this extract praising Portia? So as I just told you all, so first of all, Bassanio in winning Portia's hand has literally won heaven on the earth. If he's got a wife like Portia, then he has no joy that can match the happiness of being with Portia. He's as if he's literally in heaven. And again, she further says that if God would literally play a match, that he would compare Portia with another girl, then the other girl who would be compared to Portia has to be equivalent to Portia, which seems to be a very difficult criteria, because there is no other woman as amazing as equivalent to Portia. This is exactly what Jessica's words are in praising Portia. Here in all the answers, guys, we have just given you all the keywords. Okay, there are possibilities that your sentence framing might differ from the sentences we have given you, but at the end of the day, if the keywords are matching, you will get the marks. Okay, what has Lorenzo said earlier about Lancelot's skill in using words? So Lorenzo, after he has a good amount of debate with Lancelot, he ends up saying that he is good at manipulating, bending words around, manipulating. He has the ability to use words to fit his purpose in order to confuse the audience. He has memorized a lot of fancy words so that he can create that chaos and confusion among the readers and the listeners. As I just told you all, he is just like other jesters, okay, other jokers who literally confuse people by using words that have similar meaning, or you can say they avoid the real meaning of the particular word in order to confuse people. We have already seen that a lot of times with Lancelot. Okay, so here, because this is a 4-mark question and only 4 pointers are given, so you all are expected to write down these 4 pointers. The sentences might differ, again I'm telling you all, but at the end of the day, the keywords play the most important role. And I'll just tell you all one thing, guys. If you all want to score your maximum in literature, I have been telling you all this since the beginning. It's the keyword that matters the most, and these are exactly the keywords that we have given you all in the answers. Relate to these keywords and then frame your answer. And trust me, if you all want to score your maximum in literature, I've been telling you all this again since the beginning, practice as many papers as you can. You want to see the answers and then write it in order to get a better idea, do it. You might copy paste the answers once, twice in order to understand them, in order to learn them. Do it, but once done, start solving papers. The more papers you solve, the better the idea you'll start getting as to exactly what different kinds of questions can be asked in the examination. And trust me, if you all follow this rule, come what may, any question comes in the examination, you will be like, I know this question and I know exactly how am I going to solve it. At any given point of time, you will never go blank in the paper if you have solved as many papers as you can. This has to be your mantra in order to score maximum in literature and language. Papers, papers, papers. The more papers, the higher chance of scoring your best marks in the examination. The more papers you solve, the better you get at the concept. Remember that. Moving on to the prose section, that is taken from, let us read the paraphrase first. It was bitterly cold, snow was falling and darkness was gathering, for it was the last evening of the old year. It was New Year's Eve. In the cold and gloom, a poor little girl walked, bareheaded and barefoot, through the streets. The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. It is extremely important for all of y'all to attempt to know the name of the writers, the authors, the poets. If you write them in your examination, there are always higher chances of scoring better marks. So how do we begin the introduction here? This extract has been taken from The Little Match Girl, which has been penned down or written down by Hans Christian Andersen. The Little Match Girl is a gentle reminder of the values of compassion and charity. It is a gentle reminder to all of us what it means to be compassionate towards each other, what it means to show some charity towards the needy. So how does the author portray the little match girl at the start of the story? So here the little match girl is portrayed as a bareheaded and a barefoot child in the cold night, okay? At the New Year's Eve, this little girl, is shivering in cold, extreme cold. The poor little girl was wearing her mother's slipper, which was of course too big for her, an old apron on her body, and she was trying to sell matchsticks. And she was, again, I was telling you all, she was hungry and shivering. So these are the certain pointers that you'll need to write down in your answer. Of course, this has to be framed in proper sentences. These are just the keywords. Why was the young girl walking barefoot? So initially the young girl was wearing her mother's slipper, but she lost one of the slipper when she tried to escape from two carriages which were being driven recklessly. So just the moment she was trying to, save herself from the two carriages, she lost one slipper and the other slipper was snatched from her by a boy. Right? So this is exactly how you're going to attempt to write the next question. That why was a young girl walking barefoot? You are going to give the reasoning that initially she had a slipper, but then she lost one while trying to save herself from two carriages that were being driven recklessly. And then the third, she had the other slipper with her yet, but a boy came and snatched it from her. Why do you think the author chose the New Year's Eve at the setting of the story? So here you will have to give a little background, okay? Whereas I told you all this extra talks about being compassionate towards each other and about charity. So why was the setting only chosen of New Year's Eve? It is a time where families are sitting together and celebrating. They light up their houses and they, enjoy a good time, a good evening with their family members, with the glorious smell of roast goose. It's the time of Christmas and it's a time for celebration. So it's a week following Christmas and of course the celebrations are going on. On the other hand, we see the life of a little match girl, which was exactly in contrast to the life of the others. This poor little girl walking barefoot in the cold night. She was forced to sell matchsticks, otherwise she knew she couldn't go back home. She was scared of her father. So here this setting is going to talk about the contrasting, destiny of two kinds of people, where on one hand, people are enjoying with their family members, having a gala time. On the other hand, we see a girl like this one, the little match girl, who is even struggling to save herself from the extreme bitter cold. So here the author has chosen the New Year's Eve in order to highlight on the plight of two different kinds of people, one that are enjoying with their family members and the one who are on the roads still struggling to at least get one bite of good meal. Right? Come on. We now move on to question number 4. There's nobody on the housetops now, just a palsied few at the window set. For the best of the sight is all allow at the shambles gate, or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot I trow. We guessed it right, guys. This has been taken from The Patriot by Robert Browning. Let's say that this poetry talks about the fickle-minded nature of the people. And we can say the uncertain destiny, uncertain fortune of a person, where just a year back this patriot was, welcomed with roses and myrtle bushes on his path. And a year later, he was welcomed with stones, literally thrown on him. The fickle-minded nature, the fickle-minded behavior of people, that how, people change like in a fraction of a second. Why is there nobody on the rooftops now? Why is there nobody? Because people have now gathered at the shambles gate. Why have they gathered over there? In order to see the patriot's execution. So people were more eager, they were more eager to see the act being conducted in front of them, where the patriot is being, killed in front of them. He's being executed in front of them, and people were more interested in seeing the execution of the patriot. So that is why nobody were there on the rooftops now, because they all were at the shambles gate, waiting for that opportunity that when this patriot is going to be executed in front of them. What does a poet mean by a palsied few? What is referred to as a best sight? How is the setting different now? So we'll answer this one by one. So old men who are taken down by palsy, which means is a disease, and they're unable to cross the threshold of their houses, have been here referred to as a palsied few. What is referred to as a best sight? The best sight at this point of time is the gate of the slaughterhouse, or the very foot of the scaffold, where all the people have gathered in order to, see the execution of the patriot. How is the setting different now? Earlier, people would welcome the patriot by standing on the rooftops and the ceilings, welcoming him with flowers on his path. And now the place is absolutely empty. There is nobody on the rooftop there to cheer him. Rather, all of them have gone to the shambles gate in order to see the execution of the patriot. In what context does the poem illustrate the inconsistent behavior of the public? So first, the poem portrays how love, respect, and honor given to someone is momentary. It's just for a certain moment. It is subject to erratic changes. You never know when the mentality and the mindset of the people changes. The patriot was acknowledged as a god a year ago, but today he's being taken to the scaffold to be executed. A year back, people were like treating him like God. They were saying, what can we do for you? Tell us, this will be done. What next? And now they were all waiting for his execution. The same public who threw rose and myrtle on his way now made him bleed by throwing stones at him. Earlier, the rooftops seemed to heave and sway to welcome him in the town, but today is completely secluded by the same people. So here, when we are talking about the inconsistent behavior of the public, we are going to talk about how he was treated a year back and how he's being treated now. So all the pointers where he was acknowledged as a god earlier, now he's being taken to the scaffold. Earlier, people would welcome him with roses and myrtle, and now they're throwing stones at him. Earlier, people standing on the rooftops would cheer for him, and now they're waiting for him to be executed. So this is how you are going to explain the inconsistent behavior of the public. And now moving to the last question. But as sure I'm standing here telling the story, now it's a strange one, but here's what occurred. Yes, again, you guys have guessed it right. This has been taken from the 9 gold medals, which has been written by David Roth. So what happened to one of the athlete just before the extract? Now, before that, before we go on to the questions, let us talk about exactly what is the poet trying to explain over here, that it is not just sports that is important. Sports is there, competition with each other is there, the feeling of competing with one another is important. But at the same time, you cannot forget the value of team spirit. You cannot forget the values of humanity, compassion, and empathy towards your players. And this poetry has highlighted on the pointers of empathy and compassion, of being compassionate towards your fellow players, where the players were not running behind the medal. It was not the medal that was important for them, but it was that one athlete who fell down. Right? So what happened to one of the athletes just before the extract? So yes, one of the athletes stumbled. Okay, he fell down, he staggered, he fell onto his knee and then onto the ground. So here exactly, you know, the moment the race was about to begin, we saw the athlete stumbling down, staggering and falling onto his knee, ultimately onto the ground. So these 3 pointers have to be written for full 3 marks. What did the cry of the young athlete depict? Where was the young runner in this mood? Why was this runner basically at this? Why was he crying? What did that cry depict? It was frustration. It was anguish. He could see the dreams that he had seen of winning the medal crashing down in front of him, and he knew he could not do anything. The feeling of frustration that in spite of working so hard, I am here today on the ground, not able to get up. So the feeling of frustration, anguish, because he could see his dreams crashing in front of him and he knew he could not do anything about it. Now it's a strange one. What was referred to as strange one? Why? The only thing that was here referred to as strange was the race itself, because all the other athletes stopped. Rather than running behind the medal, one by one, these 8 athletes turned around. They came back to help the other athletes and lifted the lad to his feet. At that point of time, what was more important for them was not winning the medal, but you can say crossing the finishing line together. Right? So these 3 pointers have to be written. Now it's a strange one. What is referred? The race. And then you have to give the reasons that all the other 8 athletes stopped. Okay, they came back to help each other and help the athlete, you know, get up onto his feet again. You can also add on the point that at that point of time, the athlete, it was not the medal that was important for the athlete. The thing that was more important for them was to cross the finishing line together. Right? So I hope, guys, these guidelines have helped you all. And I'm going to see you all again in the next video solution. Bye, guys. Take care. And please don't forget to be safe. I'll see you all soon.